Okay, so are you ready to really level up your listening skills?
Oh, I like that.
Because today we are diving deep
We are.
into a guide on empathic and responsive listening.
Yes.
And let me tell you, you are going to want to grab pen and paper for this one
Yeah.
because it is jam-packed with advice
It is.
that can instantly change
Yeah.
how you connect with people.
It really is fascinating. You know, we often think about listening as this passive thing,
Right.
but this guide really highlights how it's actually an active process,
Yeah.
a skill you can hone just like anything else.
Totally. And the biggest takeaway for me is that it's not just about hearing the words.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging the feeling behind the words before you even think,
Yes.
about jumping in with your own 2 cents.
And it makes sense when you think about it, right? We all crave validation. Our brains are wired to respond to that feeling of being heard and understood.
Yeah.
It literally lowers our defenses and opens us up to connection.
Yeah. Okay, so how does this work in real life? They have this great example in the guide about a nurse and a patient in the hospital
Okay.
where the patient is desperate to get out of bed,
Yeah.
but the doctor's orders are like, nope, you're staying put for another week.
Right. Picture yourself in that patient's shoes for a second.
Okay,
You're feeling trapped, probably a little scared and desperate to get moving.
right.
Now imagine the nurse comes in and just says, "Sorry, gotta stay put." How would you feel?
Not great. Probably I wasn't even heard.
Exactly. Now imagine the nurse takes a different approach and says something like, "Hey, I hear you're uncomfortable and really want to move around. Tell me more about what's making you so eager to get out of bed."
Okay, that completely changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
They're acknowledging the patient's feelings without necessarily agreeing that getting out of bed is the right move.
That's the key distinction this guide makes. It's not about saying yes to everything,
Right.
but about validating someone's experience
Okay.
without necessarily endorsing their viewpoint or giving in to whatever they're asking for.
That's where I got tripped up at first, too.
Yeah.
I was picturing myself nodding along to everything,
Right.
like some kind of bobblehead of agreement.
Right. But think about it. You can completely understand where someone's coming from without agreeing with their conclusion.
So give me an example. How does that play out in a trickier situation?
Well, the guide talks about a counselor working with a client struggling with addiction.
Sure.
The counselor can acknowledge how intense those cravings are, how real and powerful that urge is,
Yeah.
without saying you're right to want to use again.
Right. They're validating the experience, not the behavior.
Right.
They're saying, I hear you and I get it, without condoning something that's ultimately harmful.
Exactly. Or imagine you're a union rep negotiating with a company owner.
Okay.
You can listen to and acknowledge the company's financial concerns without automatically agreeing to a wage freeze.
Right.
It's all about finding that sweet spot between understanding and holding your own ground.
Okay. So we're not just agreeing with everything we hear. We're acknowledging feelings and experiences. But how do we actually do that in a way that feels genuine?
Yeah.
The guide goes into some specific techniques, right? So it's not just about repeating back their words like a parrot.
Right. It's about reflecting back what you're hearing in a way that shows you're really trying to grasp their perspective.
It's it sounds like you're feeling.
Yeah.
Or I'm picking up that
Yeah,
you're.
exactly. And the guide even suggests using what they call tentative guesses.
Yeah.
If you're not totally sure you're reading the emotions accurately.
So if someone says, this project launch has been a total mess,
Right.
you wouldn't just say that sucks. You try to pinpoint the underlying feeling.
Right. You might say something like, "Wow, you sound incredibly frustrated and maybe even a little disappointed with how things have gone."
Which is so much more powerful because it shows you're not just hearing them.
Right.
You're really trying to understand what's going on beneath the surface.
And don't underestimate the importance of nonverbal cues.
Ooh, interesting.
Mirroring their emotional tone even subtly can go a long way.
Okay.
So if someone's telling you about a really frustrating experience,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be sitting there with a big grin on your face. You'd want to match their energy to some extent,
Yeah.
maybe with a concerned expression or a slight lean in,
Right.
just to show you're present with them.
But that takes practice, right? I mean, it can feel a little awkward at first trying to mirror someone's emotions without coming across as insincere.
It definitely does. And this is where the guide emphasizes the importance of staying grounded in your own values.
Okay.
We're not trying to become emotional chameleons,
Right.
but rather to cultivate a deeper understanding of the human experience.
Okay, so let's talk about what this looks like in action.
Yeah.
Because the guide tells this really powerful story about renowned relationship expert John Gottman.
Okay.
and his young daughter on an airplane.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a perfect example of how even the most skilled communicators
Right.
can slip up
Yeah.
when they're stressed and tired.
Oh, this story is so relatable.
Right.
Imagine you're on a plane. Your toddler is exhausted
Yeah.
and wants her beloved stuffed zebra, which is unfortunately in the checked luggage.
Yeah, of course it is.
And Gottman, being a logical human being, tries to reason with her.
Yep.
He explains that the zebra is packed away and they'll get it when they land.
Right.
But of course, his daughter is not having it. And you
Yeah.
can just picture the scene, right?
I totally.
The other passengers are giving him those do-something looks. His frustration is mounting. It's a classic parenting pressure cooker.
Been there.
And here's the turning point.
Oh,
He realizes that logic isn't working, so he takes a moment to step into his daughter's shoes.
okay.
He acknowledges that if he were a tired toddler who lived for this stuffed animal,
Right.
he'd be pretty upset too.
Totally.
And that's when his whole approach shifts.
Okay.
Instead of logic and explanations, he starts mirroring back her feelings.
Okay.
He says things like, "You wish you had Zebra now. You're angry because we can't get him for you. You wish you could hold him." And boom, almost instantly the tension dissipates.
Wow.
His daughter calms down, and within minutes she's asleep.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's amazing how powerful that simple act of validation can be.
Right.
It's not about giving in or fixing the problem.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging and honoring the other person's experience.
It reminds me of that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, I like that.
And sometimes showing you care means simply listening with empathy.
Absolutely. Now, on the flip side, the guide also briefly mentions a story where the lack of empathic listening has some pretty rough consequences.
Oh, really?
We won't dive into the details now,
Okay.
but it highlights the importance of recognizing those moments where someone really needs to feel heard and understood.
Makes you think, right? Like, how many times have we missed that opportunity
Totally.
to really connect with somebody because we were just so busy
Right.
formulating our response or trying to offer solutions.
Absolutely. And that's why I love how this guide frames listening as an art, not just a science.
Right? Because anyone can learn like the technical steps, the summarizing, the mirroring, but to become a truly great listener,
Yeah.
that takes a deeper level of like awareness and intention.
It's like learning a musical instrument, you know? You can learn where to put your fingers on the strings to play the notes, but to make it sing,
Yeah.
to really create something beautiful that takes feeling practice and a willingness to be fully present in the moment.
So how do we become more artful listeners in our own lives? What are some of the things that you're walking away from this deep dive with?
Well, for me, it's about remembering that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply be quiet and create space for the other person to feel heard. It's about resisting that urge to jump in with solutions or advice,
Right.
and just allowing the other person's truth to be present.
It's almost like hitting the pause button on our own internal monologue, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That voice that's always like chattering away, trying to figure things out,
Yes.
trying to come up with the perfect thing to say.
And it's not always easy.
No.
Our brains are wired to problem solve and offer solutions,
Right.
especially when we care about someone.
Of course.
But sometimes the most loving thing we can do is simply be a sounding board,
Yeah.
a safe harbor for them to process their thoughts and feelings.
So instead of me-centered listening, where
Yeah.
we're just waiting for our turn to speak,
Right.
it's about really shifting to you-centered listening,
Yes.
where the other person's experience takes center stage.
And that's how we build true connection, understanding, and empathy.
Think about a time when someone really listened to you,
Oh, yeah.
like you felt seen and heard without judgment. It's a powerful feeling,
It is.
and it can completely change the trajectory of a conversation, a relationship, even a life.
It can.
You know, prepping for this deep dive really got me thinking about my own listening habits.
Yeah.
And I realized that I often jump into fix-it mode
Right.
instead of truly hearing people out.
Yeah.
Like even with my partner, my first instinct is to offer solutions.
Right.
When sometimes what she really needs is just to feel understood.
And that's the beauty of this work, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's ongoing.
Totally.
We're all learning and growing as listeners every single day.
Yeah.
Every interaction is a chance to practice, to show up with more presence, more empathy, and more of that you-centered focus.
So as you navigate your day, your week, your life, remember to really listen. Pay
Yeah.
attention not just to the words being said,
Yes.
but to the emotions underneath. You might be surprised by what you learn both about yourself and the people around you.